Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I'm Mark Carbett, your host, and with me, of course, is Mr. Matt Germain. How are you doing today, my dear friend?
I'm great, and my hand is not in a tub of ice like Junior's might be, so I'm feeling really
Oh,
good.
my gosh. I mean, you don't have to be a Rays fan to be watching something like that All-Star game. And you see a player go down the way he did, which looked so much anguish and pain. And you thought, oh my gosh, is this going to rule him out for the year? Is this going to be a career ender? And just looked like it hurt a lot, evidently, because I think they said the scans came back where it's not too bad.
hmm Well, the funny part is, Mark, he was hit on the hand by an ex-Rays prospect.
Mm.
And so Riley O'Brien had spent a long time in the Rays system. And the immediate thought went to my head, did they play together? But no, he was there way before Junior ever showed up. But it's one of those where you're like, well, does he have a vendetta against the Rays then because they traded him away? No, there was nothing intentional. Apparently, Riley O'Brien and Junior spoke afterwards, and Junior was very gracious. He was like, no, I get that it wasn't done on purpose. Obviously, it's an all-star game. It's an exhibition. It's not even, a meaningful game. So I think everybody knew that. Sometimes one just gets away and it happens. So
Well, Matt, that's true, but it goes back to something you and I've talked about time and again about these exhibition games, the All-Star game and all that, and saying, well, is it worth putting that great talent into a place of jeopardy, potential jeopardy?
right.
And, I'm saying, well, Vladdy said that he was politely and respectfully declined being involved as the first baseman this year in the American League. And I respected that. He's having some back issues, and to be quite honest with you, I I don't care if he does or doesn't have back issues. If he just doesn't feel comfortable being there, I think that's his call. So to see Junior take that hit and go down on the ground, it's like, oh, it just reaffirmed everything I was thinking about. Yes, I love the game, but I don't know if it's worth it. I think there was some really fun parts of that game. You think of all that action for the American League in the first inning of the game, and then I guess go get a beer or a six pack and come back later, and you can watch the end and see another Ray wrap up the game.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, it's one of those things where I think you never expect to have much in an all-star game, but the Rays showed up and then put it out there and made the game fun. I think in a lot of different ways. So yeah, you know what, when we talk about the all-star game though, Mark, the thing that gets on my mind is I go back to the Pro Bowl, like in the
Yeah.
NFL. And I always think if you had the all-star game after the World Series ends and you have it in Vegas every year,
Yeah.
right? Everybody can fly, they can plan it ahead of time, they know it's always there. They're going to build a brand new stadium that's going to be very nice from what I hear. They're spending a lot of money on it. I I just think that they want to play more games. The stopping time, the stop and go in the Midsummer Classic is actually not really beneficial because it takes everybody out of rhythm,
Yeah.
right? You get into a rhythm, you get into a routine, and all of a sudden there's that extra space. And what we find a lot of times is that pitchers have 2 seasons before the All-Star game and after, because a lot of them never really get back their touch and feel for pitches.
Ooh.
So it's one of those things where I don't think we have the best setup right now, and I'm curious to see how MLB changes it over time.
Yeah, I mean that could be good. I mean, post World Series, if a couple weeks later, and that would make sense. Like I said, for injuries, for keeping it full, but the human body takes it so much toll, Matt. So, are you going to give me another day a week off during the regular season for these young men?
Let's be fair. Like, these aren't teachers, Mark. Like, they're already getting what, like 2 months off, like after the season ends, and they would have had all the time off for those that aren't in the playoffs. or that get out early in the playoffs.
Right.
They would have that extra time already leading up to the game. And like we said, it's an exhibition. So you're playing an inning, you're playing 2 innings, even increase the size of the rosters if you want to protect guys for the
Yeah.
All-Star game. You're showing off the best players. And what I like most about it, Mark, is that it would represent the entire season, not just the first half, right? Because you get the players that have a hot start. You could collect votes all the way through the year instead of just in the first half of the year. And like we've said before, I'd even like it to be including the Hall of Fame induction ceremony at the same time. Make
Ah,
it a huge weekend.
that's
You could
right.
have GM meetings there. You can have everything synchronized to that point where you're making November way before Christmas.
Right.
You're making it an event where all the players, GMs, executives, greats of all time are all in the same place at the same time, including the prospects game. And you're like, these are the mecca of baseball. It would be like that kind of core event. And I don't think like the Super Bowl is that for football. The whatever, like the more ingredients you mix into an event like that, the more it draws the world's attention, all at once. And to me, baseball needs more of that. Like the Field of Dreams game is the last time I can remember the world literally going, "Oh my God, like that is really interesting. Like I want to watch that game," because it's sort of bringing to life, a very like a movie that people connected very much with,
Right.
and bringing it to life. So it was quite the event. And I feel, sorry about that.
No worries.
I feel that baseball needs more connections. Like the I don't know if I'm right with this, because to be honest, I don't get out to a lot of baseball stadiums and to a lot of games,
Yeah.
right, across the country. So I don't know what emotional ties MLB is able to create with players. But there's a feel like I don't want to call it a cheapness, but almost like a targeting of fans, whether it's the prices of concessions, whether it's the
Mm.
prices of parking, whether it's the prices of tickets, how you get your tickets, the gambling ads, the this, that, where you start feeling like a little bit of a piece of meat, right? That's
Yeah.
just there to give them money and yada yada yada. So I think baseball has to make some changes where they make closer connections with fans, and the more events aimed that way. And the All-Star game was supposed to be that. I didn't get the feel of that in this All-Star game. I got the
Okay.
feeling that it was very cold and just going through the motions, right? Like very, yeah, that's the
I
feeling.
got to tell you, to me, they should never do it again in Philly. I'm just going to tell you that right now. They should never, ever do it again in Philly. First off, looking at the home run derby, I mean, why do we have comedians and all prior to all this out there with their little combines saying stuff that's frivolous and seem like, oh, have you ever seen a ball game? I had that kind of feel for that. Then while it's going on, and this isn't on Philly, this is whoever Fox or whoever's putting it on, while the guys are hitting, and there seems like there's this image of a blue ball going up in the air through some of the hits. And I'm like, what's with this? There's weirdness about it all the way. They put, oh gosh, I don't know if he's a Philadelphia legend or not. The announcer for the WWE was out there, ready to rumble, introducing all the different players
Yeah,
going to be out there. I
yeah,
do got to say, I did love
yeah.
when Bryce Harper jumped up there on the edge of that little makeshift wrestling piece, like he was going to go to the crowd. And I did love that moment. But
Mhm.
so much of the rest of that, but reason I don't want to see it in Philly again is because you didn't have a complete representation of all MLB fans there. You had Philly fans, and you had
Mhm.
Philly fans, and you had Philly fans, and there may have been some others peppered around there, families of the players. But it was insane because as they called the names of these players, and certainly in the National League, they were
Really initiated.
booed unless they were a Philly. And
Yeah.
and when any player from the home run derby came up who was not a Philly, if they hit a dinger, they were booed. I think there may have even been applause, when they actually missed one. And it was like, come on, City of Brotherly Love. What's going on here? And you know me, I'm picky anyway, but it's like if that I would I would like to see where MLB, I guess, incorporated more fans from across the country at this. I'm sure there's a way that they'll be able to afford that. And they're I
That's
think
that's why I like Vegas, because flying into Vegas is the cheapest option in all the United States from every single other location.
there you go.
Hotels are cheap, they're abundant, especially if you're going to keep it this time of year. Who wants to go to Vegas in the middle of the summer and sweat like crazy? So, like there's just everything kind of works in its favor with the current scheduling the way it is now. And like you said, it would bring in fans from everywhere that cheer for all of the players that are there for the entertainment of it all, not for the rivalries that exist. And it's fine to have some rivalries, but like that's what I found really. They weren't really into it. Even the home run derby, like you said, like they weren't exuberant in terms of their enthusiasm
No,
for it. Right?
no.
And to be honest, to be fair though, Mark, it's time to introduce some other skills than just home runs, right? Like honestly, why don't we have throwing accuracy as an example, right? You got to hit, I don't know, you can have like beer pong.
Yeah.
You can have like you need to throw the ball into a certain number of barrels and you need to hit them from a certain distance. Do something like that. Like come up with something that actually brings in more players than just the ones who hit homers. Like make
It,
it an event so that people are more interested in.
and if they missed like beer pong, do they have to, take a deep drink?
They have to run down into the dugout to do that.
Go down the dugout, squash a beer, and then come back out and do the next one. Yeah, I like that. I do want to give MLB credit for something that they did recently, though, Matt, and that was the drive-in theater. They
Mhm.
three of them across the country. They actually played what was the Sandlot, and I thought that was so cool that
Yeah.
that was a special event at three theaters across the country. Not theaters, excuse me, three drive-ins across the country. And I thought, what a great way of taking something that's part of family life, if you will, our local culture, and making that work. So there's so many other things that they can do. I just hope that they continue to open themselves up to that. You and I both have talked about Ken Babby as one of the owners of the Rays and having his background with his father, I think, general counsel with the Orioles, but then Ken also as owner with the let's see, with Jacksonville Shrimp, Jumbo Shrimp,
Mhm.
and who's the Ducks, whichever I can't remember the Rubber Ducks.
The
Uh,
they're in Ohio. Is it
Akron,
Cleveland?
Akron,
Akron. Akron.
Akron
That's
rubber ducks. That he has a mentality of how to reach to these people. Unfortunately, Ken's hardest job right now is spending more time trying to convince people to vote to have the stadium here and put a few dollars into it. But
right.
I'm really excited about what they're doing with this. I expect great things from this new ownership group, as I do from MLB. And it really is important for all those teams to understand their fans and to reach out to them in a broader scope than they are right now. But it's little things like that little drive-in piece over and over and over again that can make a difference.
How did you enjoy the Longo weekend?
Oh man, I tell you what, it was just so great, to honor a man who is the closest thing to a franchise player that was ever with the club and he is so respected. I was talking with some of the people who knew Longo today, as a matter of fact, and saying the way everybody else was around him, as far as you could get that vibe that he is still respected by his peers as well who were there. I think that was a great achievement, and it's long overdue. But well, his career has really just kind of come to a close, so I guess, as a player. So I guess maybe this was probably the best time for it.
There was well, what I saw in the attendance numbers. There was a little bit less people on the first night than there was in the second, on the Sunday. But it seemed like they got over 23,000 on the Sunday when they opened up the upper deck. So
Yeah.
I think it was a good send off for him in that front, like in terms of getting enough fans. It was similar numbers to what they do when they pull in the Yankees on the weekend, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good ode to him. I'm curious now what his next step is. Like, does he want to get into managing? Does he want to get into a whole bunch of different things? Because I could see him, like, even if he's not a manager, I could see him as a bench coach. I could see him as, somebody that wants to be a part of the game long term. But I'm glad that they gave him that send off. Like, I think that's very classy. It was needed. It needs to set a precedent. And now the thought is, like, who's next?
Lou
Right?
Piniella.
Is KK next? Lou Piniella? There's options, right? Like,
Yep.
there's other ones out there. And the Rays just drafted another one who might end up getting that treatment later on.
Do tell, do tell. Gee, could this be somebody you spoke about last week?
Yeah, Grady Emerson is a name that the Rays fans might not even understand the talent that this kid holds. And I say that with all due respect to Evan Longoria, because he was a phenom of all phenoms when he first, I don't know if people remember how he was signed before he ever played a game in Major League Baseball to that extension. And that was unheard of at that point.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to give this kid money when you haven't even played on the field. And so Grady Emerson is the type of player you build a franchise around. Like Junior Caminero, I give him all the respect in the world, but defensively, he's lacking a couple of things. He has things that he needs to learn. There's aspects to his game where, you talk about the ground outs and double play, things like that he's still working through and towards. Plate discipline wise, he's come leaps and bounds, etc. But Grady Emerson is going to be more than likely that good or better.
Wow.
Right. And that's what the caliber, when you're talking about a third baseman versus a shortstop, it's just you're implicated in way more plays as a shortstop than you would be as a third baseman. So you have more opportunities to impact the game and be a benefit to your pitching, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've heard, Mark, I've been doing this for, oh my goodness, way too long. But I have all of the Baseball America books, right? And I've read what they say. I understand how they speak, their lingo, the praise that they throw around when you really like someone. And other times, like Clayton Kershaw's one. I can remember Jim Callis talking to nauseum about this, that, and the other thing, and how he's walking on water. He didn't understand why he wasn't top of the board, etc. So when I hear them talk about Grady Emerson and saying just there's nothing about his game that you can pick on, like he's just that well-rounded a player at a young age, and the makeup is off the charts. Like it's just way above and beyond what you would ever even expect from a player. So like you talk about a Rays style of player, he is the mecca of what they would want. He's a shortstop. He's very, very, very solid defensively. So it's as if you merged, Evan Longoria and Taylor Walls, like in terms of like offensive capabilities and defensive capabilities, and you put them at shortstop, or Kevin Kiermaier, even like you're just making that kind of player and starting to visualize it. So when I think of the Rays franchise with Grady Emerson and Junior Caminero back to back, like you're starting to look at the franchise completely different, because the next thought that goes in your mind is, can other teams match that? So can the Blue Jays match that? Can the Yankees match that? Like Aaron Judge is going to be 36 next year.
Jeez.
Like, oh, so it starts to say, where are the Rays really going with all of this? And I think that they picked another shortstop, Taj Marchand, right behind him, who's supposed to be just as, not as impactful, but he is a very, very, very solid player that has a very high ceiling as well. So the Rays did a really good job with the draft, Mark. Very interesting points I'll just add in here. They only drafted 4 position players. The rest of them were all pitchers. And they were very heavy on the high school side. So that tells me that they're very happy with their system. They want it to slow grow behind. So they backloaded a lot of the talents that they brought in, which adds a little bit more risk, but it also gets them to groom them right from the beginning to the style that they want.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I think there's a lot of positives out of this draft. Now, having said that, they still have to sign him and they still have to decide what that contract will look like.
Hmm.
Thankfully, Rock Chalowski already signed with the White Sox,
Yeah.
10 million, broke the record. So it sets, boundaries to what Grady Emerson can probably ask for. So the Rays should get that locked in pretty quickly.
Well, I'm glad that the White Sox did not pick up, Grady, because I know you were talking about the other day. Are we going to get Kowalski? Or are we going to get, Emerson? And I'm glad it worked out the way it did. Let's just hope that enough money is going to be spent there to keep somebody, a talent like that, and keep waiting for the extension of Caminero. One of the national, let's see, I think it was MLB. Somebody was asking Junior if he wanted to stay in Tampa Bay, and I think it was D Rose or whatever, and he said yes, he wants to stay there. He indicated like he didn't say forever necessarily, but he was excited about being there. They
Mhm.
asked him what makes this team great, and he says it's the people together,
Mhm.
and then he was mentioning also McClanahan and Martinez. He was going down the list, and that kind of energy and what he's bringing to the game needs to be rewarded and it needs to be locked down now. I probably sounds like so repetitive each week with that, but
Well, to be honest, Mark, and I'm going to give him a lot of credit here, this all comes down to Stu Sternberg. Stu Sternberg built the standard through the people that he hired that
yeah,
instilled this program where they draft, bring in, and keep good people.
yeah,
If you're ruffling feathers and you're not somebody that, a good example, there was a whole bunch of people that didn't want to wear certain pride style things.
yeah,
It didn't take more than 3 months before all of them were gone, right? There's a certain decorum that the Rays bring in and build around. And when I interviewed enough the Rays prospects, every single one of them said gushing things about the franchise and the coaching. And we've interviewed the AA manager, same thing. Like they firmly believe in that process that they've put in place. And it all started with how they set the standard. Well, I say Stu Sternberg, but Stu Sternberg hired the people who groomed Eric Neander and the rest of them into being and setting that standard, right?
right, right,
So, anyways, I think the Rays, when you look at it from an outside point of view, there's a lot of players that want to play for the Rays and would love to play for the Rays. Stadium wise, maybe not so much. So that's
yeah.
the last ingredient, right? If ever they can get that stadium locked in Tampa, I'm telling you, Mark, it would be a destination for free agents. A lot of people winter in Florida and
Yeah.
have winter homes there. They know spring training is there. It would make their family lives easier. Tampa Bay would become a very, very, very popular destination, a lot like what San Diego is on the West Coast, where people just gravitate to there because they want to raise their families and stay there for the long term.
Oh yeah. Well, I can tell you now, having worked a little bit more locally, like Tampa Baseball Museum and some of the other organizations, there are a lot of former baseball players here, and I'm not talking about necessarily just Rays or people that grew up here. There are definitely that, and there's many of them who come here and visit for a portion of the year. Like during spring training. Been fortunate enough. Joe Madden's. I know we'd probably see him again this year. He's here during that time. So there's several others. There is a call to this kind of weather. Hopefully, it stays decent, and to the history of baseball in Florida that draws people to it. And we'll see how it goes. But I feel good about Junior, and really just I think they're smart enough to do what needs to be done to keep him. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
I
Let's see
agree.
with that. Let's see, brother. Some other things I want to talk about is we've got this, the midsummer break, if you will. But once it's over, it is over. There is no break. We've got 11 straight games on the road for 10 days. I mean, and two of those are with the division teams as well. Let's see what we got. We'll be going with the Red Sox in Boston. Then let's see the Blue Jays, and then we wrap it up in Cleveland. So that starts off on Friday, July 17th, and then 10 days later, they'll have finished all that up and they'll be back here. So after 10
Mhm.
days. But man, 10-day road trip. And you're talking about coming back after being not necessarily out of sync per se, but still trying to find your feet and not being able to be home for those first 11 games.
Yep. And then the question is, how aggressive are they going to be at the trade deadline? Rumors, Mark. There's rumors.
Oh, come on. Come on. What is there something more substantial than what we've heard in the past? What
My clue would be rawr. The Tigers are apparently have had talks with the Rays, I guess.
Yeah.
This is the rumor about Tariq Skubal. And the interesting part of this is when you look at the Tigers roster altogether, right? They've got some pieces that they can build around. They've got Cold Keith, they got McGonigal, I call him witchcraft. There's a lot of pieces that they can build around, but they need some outfield help. They need an extra couple of pieces. They need more depth in terms of the breadth of quality of their pitching. So they've got some issues to fix. And they know that they can't re-sign Tariq Skubal, or they would have done it by now, from all indications, right? And to be quite honest, they might take way more than what the Rays would be willing to pay for Tariq Skubal. Having said that, their commitments for next year are just $12 million. So they have a full breadth of options on their plate if they did want to extend Tariq Skubal. If you're telling me that Grady Emerson's going to arrive, Junior Caminero is still going to be on the Rays, and they have Tariq Skubal long term, that's an interesting group of guys to have on your franchise when you open a new stadium, Mark. So I don't know how much truth there is to it. All I can say is that if you offered them Jacob Melton, Brody Hopkins, a couple of more pitchers, and some other really high-end prospects like Xavier Isaac comes to mind. There's a lot of high-end quality that the Rays can afford to move on from. And I do think that they can build a package that the Tigers would be very interested in order to get this done. Yeah. And because it's only for half a season for Tariq Skubal's salary, then he's not really going to cost them a heck of a lot. He's making $32 million this year. So the Rays are not going to pay that crazy amount, but if you tell them that they only need to cover 60% of what's remaining, so let's assume it's 16 million that for argument's sake that's remaining for the rest of the year. Well, less than that because it's less than half left. So let's say it's 12 million right now. Let's say they pick up 10 million out of that. They can afford that, and it keeps them under 10 million, under 100 million overall. So all I'm saying is that the finances should be workable. And even if there's a player that heads to Detroit that's actually on the roster, that helps to even it out as well. But the point is, what does it do to the Rays rotation? So I like it, Mark, because he's somebody you want on the mound in the playoffs. If you're telling me that Shane McClanahan, Tariq Skubal, and Drew Rasmussen are your 1, 2, 3 pitchers in a playoff series, I'm telling you, we win that series. I don't see why we wouldn't, unless there's implosions in the pen and the offense doesn't show up, yada, yada, yada. But it would be a statement for the Rays to do this, to say 2026, we're going for it. We're going to amp things up and consider that the Rays are going to welcome back Manuel Rodriguez as well this, over the next few months. And he's a closing option, right? He's that high of a quality pitcher. He had surgery in July of last year or early August last year. He's supposed to be coming back. He's throwing live sessions again. Started doing that at the end of June. So Manuel Rodriguez would really amp up the pen. So now you add Rodriguez, you add Skubal. The last piece, in my opinion, is to amp up the catching position with somebody who can slug, maybe Hunter Goodman, somebody like that. And now all of a sudden you've got a really intriguing case for a team that's already supposedly, based on the record, the best in the American League.
So Hunter Goodman, you get him out of Seattle, right? And
Colorado.
That's right. Right part of the country, different elevation. Yeah. Anyway. But oh wow, man, yeah, that would be something. So Skubal, wow, yeah. I mean, I know it's been interesting going down here to Lakeland to be able to see him and some of the other ones of the Tigers, and it's interesting to see how some of those names change from spring training to the end of the regular season as well. So I don't know. Well, I'm excited about that. It's that like that possibility.
The other thing I like about it, Mark, he doesn't go to the Dodgers and he doesn't go to the Yankees, right? So if you're going to go in the playoffs, it's almost like you've got to take the best piece off the board that they
Yeah.
can't go after. So then they're stuck going for lesser options. Like, because I would say if you're looking at the starting pitchers in Major League Baseball right now, he's in the top 5 to 6, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think most people would agree with that.
So yeah, I want to talk a little bit about women in baseball because there's so much going on right now. There's a lot of history, as you know, Matt. I've been working on a lot of researching a young woman by the name of Snyder Shushu Worth, and all the history that woman has here in Tampa, all these different sports she's played, and it's interesting when you get in Tampa sports how everything's connected. And I'm finding like even this young woman when she was playing, she was born 100 years ago and that when she was playing, I'm also finding her later on teams with Margaret Panella, Lou's mother. You see all these families one way or another circling through. But the history of the game for women in baseball, a lot of what she and others did with the All American Girls Professional Baseball League, a league of their own, has been basically a leaping board into the activities going on today. Now, they weren't the only one. There was a lot of women, and there were semi-pro and pro baseball leagues way back even then. But today, there is also what you're going to find with women's baseball across all of these other nations. And women's teams come together for the World Baseball Classic or the World Baseball World Cup, actually. And it's been held in Thunder Bay the last few times around up here in Canada. It was just too long a hike for me. This year, I probably could have made it. It's starting here in about a week, and it's going to be in Rockford, Illinois. Now, what happens is this year, they have what's called the group stage. There are two different parts of the world that we're going to be entertaining young women's baseball teams for a competition. And those who go through this right now in those two different locations will qualify to be in the World Women's Cup next year, which will be the world stage, not the groups. They'll come together, and then that's when the actual cup competition will happen. But if you want to see some great teams now, you can certainly go to Rockford, and that's going to be going on. Let's see here. Oh, the Women's Baseball World Cup is going to be going on from July 22nd through July 26th. And which, if you go there the first day, you're going to see Canada playing Hong Kong. You're going to see Australia playing Mexico, and then USA playing against Korea. And the following nights after that, it's kind of a round robin. So each of these teams will play one another over the next few days from July 22nd through July 26th. And I hope you got your tickets because it's being played at a historic field where the Rockford Peaches used to play in Rockford, Illinois. And my kudos to all the good people that have really worked to put this together. I know we've talked with Ryan Woodward in the past and Cat Williams and Leslie Heafy, and there's some of the people who helped bring this together. And simultaneously, or it's around the same time, maybe earlier in that week, they have the All American Girls Professional Baseball League reunion. So people who support those women belong to the group, including myself and as well as some of the women who are still with us. Thank you, God, who will be there. It's going to be interesting too for those who come to attend. You're going to be able to see some of the stars from a league of their own are going to be there as well. So I would recommend if you want to find more about that, you can certainly go to the site. And let me give it to you here real quick. Not sure, I think it's iwbc.org. Let's confirm that. Yeah, iwbc.org. And that would help you get to any of that information and, purchase tickets as well. So a lot's going on for women in baseball for the next few weeks. And then not a month later, we're going to have the Women's Pro Baseball League starting up. And Matt, we'll talk more about that on a future show because they just had team names by cities, but this last week they actually unveiled names for those teams. And there's a history behind each one of those names, which I like. It's not just hey, let's call us the Lions. No, the Lions are nice. But no, they've got the names actually have something associated with a person or an action, and they take more depth than what I'm going to be able to give them here today. So kudos to them for getting all that together. So that is a quick rundown of some of the things going on with women's baseball. And there's even the baseball for all tournaments going on in Rockford as well right now. So busy
Right,
time.
right. The ones that I'd heard about was the New York Heights, Los Angeles Queens. They had my goodness, I can't remember the other ones. The Hunters
Hmm.
and or what the other one was. Anyways, they have sites set up that people can start following them. So I would recommend they do that. Like for instance, there's a Facebook site for the Women's Professional Baseball League with 75,000 followers. It doesn't cost any money to follow them. See what it's all about. You'll see it in your feed afterwards. You'll see the highlights as they're playing games as they come up. So I recommend people start adopting some of those things. Also, if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe to the certain channels that have their highlights and you'll see the feeds more. But there's so many stars that are going to come out of this event that's going on right now.
Yeah.
And I've always said highlights sell sports, right? I remember
It's true.
you probably those Sports Center was exactly that. You as a sports fan, it was a must. It was like a religious experience. Every morning you get up, you look at Sports Center, and you see the highlights of the games, and you're
Yep.
like, oh, now you pick up the names, you pick up the players, and they become part of your habitual routine. And so I think that really, Mark, they're going to have no problems because I know the talent is there to attract a lot of attention and get themselves established.
Well, I'm excited about it. And you were mentioning the teams' names. I mean, I'll go into more in this another show, but the Boston Hunters, let's see, it's inspired by Harriet K. Hunt, the first woman to apply to Harvard Medical School and establish a medical practice in the U.S. Los Angeles Queens, inspired by Lizzie Murphy, the Queen of the Diamond, and the first woman to play baseball against major leaguers. The New York Heights, inspired by Dorothy Irene Height, a pioneer civil rights and women's rights leader, and the San Francisco Firebells, which I love that name, inspired by Lily Hitchcock Coit, also I think nicknamed Firebell, who championed San Francisco volunteer firefighters. And I love firefighters, period, and what they do. And there's we talk time and again about how many of these women professional baseball players have been and are firefighters. So
I think of the emotional attachment to everything you just said. It is almost completely opposite from everything baseball. The only one I could think of that has some sort of attachment like that is the recent change to Guardians for Cleveland, right?
yeah.
It has some sort of connection like that. Every other one is sort of, well, what's a Blue Jay? Like, yeah, sure, we have Blue Jays in Canada, but is there an emotional attachment to birds? No, I don't think there is. It's funny. Like I think that's something that they're setting up that's different, in terms of focus for that league than Major League Baseball has done. The other interesting thing, though, Mark, is that MLB.com writers are writing about the WPBL.
Yeah.
And so you can find articles on their site. So there is MLB support in promoting that. And so eventually, I don't know if I don't want to call it merging, but they could become in sync basically across the board. So it'll be interesting to see if ever you see one of their teams playing in the same stadium as MLB teams and just making sure the schedules jive.
Well, that's going to, yeah. I mean, they've worked with a lot of teams too, even with some of these fan fest events.
Mhm.
Some of them, whether it actually be at a major league field with a team that's associated with MLB, or sometimes they'll do it at like a spring training down at, whether it be down at Fort Myers. Who was that with? Boston, I guess. There's different
Mhm.
ones that they do that with. And to me, it's exciting to see that. This has been a long time coming. And another thing, I want to mention is like, I guess it's been about 2 days ago. A friend of mine by the same name of Sue Zapay passed away about a year ago on that day. Other people were honoring her on different social media, and as well they should. She's been kind of critical to making sure this started. So before there was a women's pro baseball league, Sue was already starting American girls baseball. And
Mhm.
that was a couple of years ago that she did it in Sarasota a couple of years, and they did it in Durham about a year ago. And now, others have picked up the torch and are doing this with the Women's Pro Baseball League. But I do want to say thank you to Sue. She did a great job. And, we were fortunate I was fortunate enough to meet her, and I consider her a friend. And, she was guest on the show, but I would reach out to her because I try to help out with some of the things she was doing with developing that with the American girls baseball. Good woman, great woman. Coming back from that, I'm looking forward to the return to regular baseball. I'm not looking forward to 11 days before we see our boys come back.
I'll tell you what, though, Mark, I think we were completely off base with the predictions we had for the Rays record this year.
Lord.
I'm going to keep shaming us all year round because we really didn't see this coming, right?
We got to bring Josh back on because Josh rubs my nose in it all the time. Said, "Hey, how you and Matt doing with predictions? Do you remember what I said to you guys about how they're going to do?" Yeah, Josh. Okay, we'll let him come in, put our nose in the stink on some of that because yes, you're right. You weren't alone on that. We both said that.
I've never been happier to be wrong, Mark.
Oh, brother, ain't that the truth? Well, let's just hope they continue to make us even more wrong than we were. That even a further gap on what our initial take was, because the team's just been amazing. The energy's there, fans are there. I love it when they had to open up the 300 section for Longo the other night. That's just great.
No, it's all good, Josh. Like you said, the fields are good. They just need a stadium. Like, get the stadium locked in. Stop messing around. Come up with something that makes sense. Make the fans happy. Make the league happy, because then they can move on to expansion. Like, that's something that needs to be addressed as well, right? So, yeah, get on with it.
I'm with you, brother. I am with you, Mr. Matt. You're on it. Well, brother, you got any other goodies we should cover today?
Yeah, don't spend all your money on baseball, but do enjoy enough. That's all I got for you.
I'm with it. I am absolutely with it. Okay, my friend. Well, I want to thank you all. Matt and I want to say appreciate you all coming and visiting with us here today. Remember to like us, love us. Go ahead and make sure you leave some comments. If they're healthy and happy, we like that. If you're critical, we welcome those as well. So we'll look forward to talking with you guys again real soon.
Bong.
If you enjoyed this show, go ahead, like and subscribe to Baseball Biz on Deck. You may also find Baseball Biz on Deck on YouTube at iHeart Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and at baseballbizondeck.com. Also, you can find Matt at matgermain.bskysocial. That's Matt at matgermain.bskysocial, or Mark at baseballbizondeck.bskysocial and Baseball Biz on Deck with Facebook.